Hello. Happy Thursday, everyone. Welcome to Once Upon a Turkey Leg. I'm Dean the Turkey Legster, and welcome to the stream. I just need to check one quick thing, if you will bear with me. Welcome in, everybody, tonight to the stream. Hi, Carol. Welcome in. Happy Thursday. Okay. Look at okay. Awesome. So, hope you are having a great week so far. I'm having a good one. Lots of things going on at my house. Very busy week. We've been having our work done in our kitchen, and so there have been workers working in the kitchen, and so the kitchen has been all tore up. We're getting a new cabinets, a new counter. The refrigerator and the dishwasher are basically the only things that are not getting replaced. We got new lighting in. We're having new shelving go into the pantry. So the work continues. Do you see a Donald hat? Yes, this is my Disney shirt. I think I muted that right there. Okay. Oh, 1 second. Okay. Yeah, so that's my Disney shirt. I just found it. I actually found it after it was misplaced for a little while, while their workers have been here in the house doing work at the kitchen, in the kitchen. I've been spending a little more time in here, so I have been starting to work on organizing everything. Hey Dave, welcome in. Welcome. Happy Thursday. So yes, yeah, the back sides of Mickey and Pals. That's right. So I'm just gonna wait for another maybe 2 or so minutes for people to find the live stream, and then we'll get going. 'Tis the season for Christmas stories. So let's get going on it. Last Thursday I was not live, but I did upload a story. Was not live because I had some things going on in my world that prevented me from going live, but I still wanted to bring out a story for you guys, and so that's on the channel, a pre-recorded story that I did last week of Charlie Brown's Christmas. You can see Snoopy's doghouse. Speaking of stories that you can watch, the Peanuts Countdown to Christmas series is going. It's ongoing. Every morning a new video comes out right around 9 o'clock a.m. Eastern Standard Time, and they're short videos between 4 to 6 minutes in total length. And so definitely check those out if you have a few moments, if you would. Mandy, hello, happy Thursday. I'm sorry to hear about your aunt. I will keep her in my thoughts and prayers. Definitely, definitely. Sorry to hear that. Um, I've also been dealing with some health things. I won't go into exactly what I'm dealing with, but I am. It's kind of been ongoing, and I'm hoping to get some care for it. Um, and Yeah, but anyway, but thoughts and prayers for your Aunt Mandy. Thoughts and prayers for Dave. I know your parents are having some things going on nowadays. So prayers for your parents, Dave. Anyone else that are facing health, it matters. Our bodies are wonderful, but they're not perfect, and they are subject to, deterioration, um, and yeah. So let me go ahead and get started with a couple of fun Christmas stories. Princess Paula Bell, and congratulations on your great news. If you follow Paula on Instagram, she has recently shared a couple pieces of happy news in her world. So congratulations on both pieces of that big things going on in your world there. Very exciting. So with that, I will go ahead and read a couple of fun Christmas stories. I was going to do a pre-recorded version of this story, but I decided to go ahead and read it live on a stream. I think there'll be enough streams and I have enough stories. This is a story from the VeggieTales series, one of their Christmas stories, and it's called It is the St. Nicholas, a Veggie Christmas Story. And coming up in January, I will have a couple more VeggieTale titles. So once again, this is St. Nicholas, a Veggie Christmas Story. It's adapted by Karen Poth and illustrated by John Trost. Based on the VeggieTales video, St. Nicholas, a Veggie Christmas Story. It was the day before Christmas. Everyone in town was shopping, decorating, and running errands. Junior was busy finishing up his list for Santa when a question popped into his head. If Christmas is when we celebrate the birth of Jesus, Junior asked, what does St. Nicholas have to do with that? That's a great question, Bob the Tomato said. Junior, Annie, Laura, and Jimmy got quiet as Bob told them this story. And if you're not familiar with the VeggieTales, we have Bob the Tomato right there in the middle where my finger is. Over here we have Larry the Cucumber. Junior is Junior Asparagus. And then the other veggies back there is Jerry Gourd. And that is Annie. There. And Laura Carrot. And I'm not sure what vegetable Annie is. So anyway, Bob told them this story. A long, long time ago, in a faraway place called Greece, there lived a fisherman named Epiphanes. He was known as a kind man who was happy to share what he had with others. Epiphanes had a son named Nicholas. The boy loved his parents and his home and his friend Octavius, but most of all, he loved fishing with his father. One night, while Nicholas and his father were fishing, a huge ship pulled into port. Gustav, the ship's captain, landed his tired workers their wages, or handed his tired workers their wages as they left the ship. "This is not enough to feed my family," said one worker. "That is too bad," shouted the stingy Gustav, pushing the man along. Epiphanes felt sorry for the worker. "If it's food you need, knock on my door," he said. "You will not leave hungry." Hello, Amy, AGC Magic. Welcome in. Happy Thursday. Later that night, Nicholas asked his father, "If we give away our fish, will I have to work for Gustav?" "No," his father replied. "God has blessed us with much. Don't worry. When you are grown up and I am gone, our boats will belong to you." It wasn't long before his parents were gone, and Nicholas was left alone to take care of his father's fishing business. The townsfolk came to Nicholas for fish to feed their families, but there were too many people. "I can't do this without my father," Nicholas said to Octavius. "I'm leaving." Nicholas climbed aboard a fishing boat and set sail. He wasn't sure where he was going. He just wanted to get away from his troubles. Octavius was sad to see his friend go. Nicholas spent many years sailing from port to port. Finally, he came to the city of Bethlehem. Nicholas remembered that his father had told him it was the place where Jesus was born. As Nicholas walked through Bethlehem, he saw a woman feeding the poor. "God loves you," she said as each grateful person left her table. "Go in peace." "Why are you doing this?" Nicholas asked. "Does it make you happy?" "I do it because I am happy," the woman replied. "My love is a gift to them, just as God's Son was a gift to me." For the first time, Nicholas realized that his parents had given to others because God had given to them. "It is time for me to go home and finish my parents' work," Nicholas shouted. When Nicholas got home, everything was different. Gustav was the mayor. He owned every booth in the marketplace and every store on the square. Gustav had left the townsfolk nothing. As Nicholas stood there, he read Gustav's latest decree. Anyone caught giving a gift to another will pay a fine of 1 gold coin. If they cannot pay, they will be thrown in jail forever. Hi, Mike. Welcome in. That is Gustav's decree. This is terrible, Nicholas cried. How will I ever do my parents' good work if Gustav won't let me give gifts? Remember the words of Jesus, his old friend Octavius said wisely. When you give to the needy, do not let your left hand know what your right hand is doing. That's it, Nicholas exclaimed. We will give our gifts in secret. That night, Nicholas and Octavius slipped out into the city to give gifts. They had put on many different disguises so that no one would know who they were. Gustav's men were guarding all the doors and windows around town. But that didn't stop Nicholas. He and Octavius jumped quietly from rooftop to rooftop. Ho, ho, ho! Nicholas laughed in his new disguise, with his bag of gifts thrown over his shoulder. No matter how hard Gustav's guards looked, they could not find Nicholas. Nicholas delivered gifts to everyone in need by dropping them down the chimney. Excuse me. Nicholas delivered gifts to everyone in need by dropping them down the chimney of each house on his list. After many years, people all over the world began to give gifts on one special night of the year. So, just like Nicholas, we can share God's love with others by giving, Junior asked when Bob had finished his story. I couldn't have said it better myself, said Bob. This is the best Christmas ever, Junior shouted. Everyone agreed and they began to sing. I can love because God loves me. I can give because God gave. Jesus' love is why I'm smiling, why I'm giving Christmas Day. And that is the end of the first story tonight. Veggie Tales, Saint Nicholas, a Veggie Christmas Story. So if you're not familiar with Veggie Tales, this is a fun one of their videos. I think you can find this on YouTube. I'll have to look for it and put a link in the comments after the stream is done. So look for that later, or you can just search for it by the name VeggieTales Saint Nicholas. I know the VeggieTales YouTube channel has a lot of clips of their material and not necessarily full actual original episodes. But anyway, that is the first story tonight, VeggieTales. Yes, I love the VeggieTales. I haven't actually watched a VeggieTales in a while. I unfortunately made the decision to donate all of my VeggieTale DVDs recently, um, but it's a fun series. Enjoy it very much. So, our second story tonight is the one that you may have noticed if you saw the thumbnail. I was super surprised to find that this story had an illustrated book that you could, one second while I clear this notification on the computer. Okay, so this is a holiday, a classic. By the way, welcome in, Mike. I think I said hello. I saw Amy. AJC Magic had popped in earlier. I think I said hi already. Anyway, let me show you because this was such a pleasant surprise. I got this um, several weeks ago, maybe probably a couple months ago, because I was anticipating the Christmas season. This is our second story tonight. It's A Wonderful Life, the illustrated holiday classic. Of course, the original features Jimmy Stewart playing George Bailey. Classic Christmas story. So, It's a Wonderful Life, the illustrated holiday classic. It's adapted by Paul Ruditis. Illustrated by Sarah Conradson. A long time ago, back before there were televisions and before computers existed or credit cards, long before all of that, a boy named George Bailey was growing up in a little town called Bedford Falls. He lived in that little town, never knowing that an angel named Clarence was watching over him. Clarence was really an angel second class. That meant he hadn't earned his wings yet. Oops. This is a big book. Let me 1 second, guys. I'm going to turn my computer this way because I won't be able to show you all the picture. But here is the second page. There's Clarence up in the corner there. Definitely, Paula, you should watch this movie. Definitely. Clarence watched as George played with his friends. He saw the time George saved his younger brother Harry when he fell through the ice. He watched as George worked at Gower's drugstore, running deliveries and helping the customers. One day, George stopped Mr. Gower from accidentally giving the wrong medicine to a sick child. Mary Hatch often visited the store just to spend time with George. Clarence watched it all. When George got older, he worked for his father at the Bailey Brothers Building and Loan Office. George's father and his uncle Billy helped people save their money so they could buy important things, like new homes. George didn't want to buy a new home in the little town of Bedford Falls. He dreamed of exploring the world and visiting exciting places he'd only read about in magazines. Years later, on the night before George planned to leave Bedford Falls to travel the world, he went to a party at his old high school. There he danced with Mary Hatch. The dance was in the school gym, which had been built over the old pool. A jealous boy tried to ruin George and Mary's dance by opening the floor, but that didn't stop them from dancing. George walked Mary home that night, wearing dry clothes he'd found for them in the locker room. They made wishes by throwing rocks at the old abandoned Granville house, trying to break the windows. George told Mary about his dreams to see the world. Mary didn't tell George what she wished for, but he made his best guess. You want the moon? Just say the word and I'll throw a lasso around it and pull it down. On that same night, George's father passed away. No one trusted George's forgetful Uncle Billy to run the family business. George had to stay in Bedford Falls, or else the company would close and people would lose their money and their homes. That was exactly what Mr. Potter wanted. He was the wealthiest man in town, and he dreamed of owning all of Bedford Falls. The building and loan was one of the few businesses that could stop him from taking over the entire town. George stayed home to run the business. He gave the money he'd saved for his trip to his brother so Harry could go to college and then run the business when he graduated. But when Harry came home after college, he had a wife and a good job that took him away from the little town of Bedford Falls. George realized that no one was going to take over the business. He was never going to leave Bedford Falls to explore the great big world. Clarence saw that too. George didn't entirely mind staying in Bedford Falls because he and Mary had fallen in love. They got engaged and planned their honeymoon. It wasn't the great big trip that George had always dreamed of, but as long as he was with Mary, it would be wonderful all the same. On the same day as George and Mary's wedding, Mr. Potter bought the town bank and tried to take over the building and loan. George and Mary gave up all of their savings to help George's customers. Now they couldn't afford to leave Bedford Falls for their honeymoon, but the company would not go out of business either. Mr. Potter would not win. Hi, Garrett. Great to see you. Happy Thursday. That night, Mary told George to come to the abandoned building they'd made their wishes on. She had bought it for them with the last of their money. They would have their honeymoon in that old house in Bedford Falls. And hello, Annie. Annie Coog, welcome in. Over the next few years, George and Mary turned that broken down old house into a home. They filled it with 4 wonderful children named Pete, Janie, Zuzu, and Tommy. And they helped more people in Bedford Falls. For instance, George made sure that Mr. Martini got enough money to buy his own new home so he didn't have to keep renting the expensive house that Mr. Potter owned. George helped even more people move into the new homes, and the little town of Bedford Falls began to grow. This is a big book. When the war broke out overseas, George stayed in Bedford Falls, protecting people from Mr. Potter's greed and working with Uncle Billy to make sure their business stayed open. George's brother, Harry, went off to fight in the war, where he saved hundreds of soldiers. Everyone in town was proud of Harry. The president even gave him a special award. Uncle Billy was so excited he forgot to put the customers' money in the safe. He accidentally left it all behind when he was bragging to Mr. Potter about Harry on Christmas Eve. Annie and anyone else who didn't catch it at the beginning, this is an illustrated version of It's a Wonderful Life. It's a Wonderful Life. It was the most important thing Uncle Billy had ever forgotten. Now it was George's responsibility to find the money because he was the boss. If he didn't find it, he could go to jail. George and Uncle Billy searched all over town, but they didn't find anything. When George got home, he found his youngest daughter, Zuzu, upset because her flower had lost some petals. He couldn't fix that either, so he hid the petals in his pocket. Okay, I will show the first picture there on top. Zuzu's petals. It was the worst Christmas ever. George was so upset that he yelled at his family, even though they'd done nothing wrong. And there's the second picture there in the middle. It's hard to get it because this is a big, huge book. And hello, Diana. Welcome in. Happy Thursday. Mary told George to leave. Then she started calling people for help. She could tell that her husband was very sad. And then here is the last picture on that page. Won't you come out tonight? George went to the only person who could help. Mr. Potter was the richest man in town. Surely he could lend George the money, but the evil banker refused George's pleas for help, never admitting that he had the missing money all along. George couldn't go home, and he couldn't go to anyone else for help. No one in the little town of Bedford Falls had the amount of money he needed. George felt like a complete failure. He blamed himself for not being able to save the business, and he thought that Bedford Falls would be a better place if he weren't around to make things worse. That's when he heard the shouts from a man who'd fallen into the river below. George did what he always did. He dove in to help. George saved the man and learned that it was Clarence, the angel, second class, who had been watching over him. Clarence tried to convince George that he wasn't a failure, that his life had actually been pretty good. George didn't believe any of it, especially not the part about Clarence being an angel second class. To prove it, Clarence made George's wish come true. Back at Mr. Martini's bar, Clarence tried to explain that helping George was the only way he'd earn his wings to become a full angel. George wasn't paying attention. The place looked so different, and his friend Mr. Martini was gone. Even the bartender, Nick, was different. But nothing prepared George to learn what happened to his old boss from the drugstore. Mr. Gower had spent years in prison because George hadn't been around to stop him from giving the wrong medicine to that sick child. Okay, so many things were different. Was it possible that Clarence was telling the truth? Maybe George had never been born, but George still wasn't ready to believe it. Oops. Not even when he discovered his daughter's flower petals were gone. Zuzu's petals. Okay, sorry guys, this is a very awkward to hold on stream book. George hurried home, surprised to find that the quiet little town of Bedford Falls had somehow become a big, noisy town called Pottersville. The building and loan had gone out of business years ago because George wasn't around to run it. With no one to stop him, Mr. Potter had taken over the entire town and made it a terrible place to live. The changes didn't end there. George and Mary's home was still abandoned, as if his family had never lived there. His own mother didn't recognize him. Because George had never been born, no one had been around to save his little brother when he fell through the ice. Clarence explained that without Harry Bailey in the war, no one saved all those soldiers either. George was horrified to discover that the love of his life, Mary Hatch, didn't recognize him. If she didn't know him, then their children had never been born either. That's why Zuzu's petals weren't in his pocket. George was heartbroken to see that all these bad things had happened just because he'd never been born. George went back to the bridge where it all started, hoping that he could make everything right. He was alone again, but he called out to Clarence. "Help me, Clarence. Please, please. I want to live again. I want to live again." A moment after he asked for help, George's friend found him and recognized him once again. George was thrilled, but not nearly as happy as when he realized that his daughter's flower petals were back in his pocket. Everything was back to normal in Bedford Falls. Everyone on the street recognized George again. The Bailey brothers' building and loan was still in business. Only grumpy old Mr. Potter was upset by George's happiness. George ran all the way home. He knew the police were waiting there for him, but he didn't care. His family would be there too, and that's all that mattered. He never expected what else would be waiting for home for him. Everyone in Bedford Falls that George had ever helped turned out to support him in his time of need. They could replace all the missing money by adding together what little cash they each had. The business would survive. George may never have left the little town of Bedford Falls, but he'd spent every day of his life helping the people around him, and those people, in turn, were there for George when he needed them. And Mr. Potter might have all the money in the bank, but money wasn't nearly as important as all the people who had come to help George in his time of need. On top of the money his friends had collected, George found a gift from Clarence. It seemed George wasn't the only one whose dream had come true. And of course, oops, Zuzu's there saying, every teacher says, every time a bell rings, an angel gets his wings. And then there's the gift that Clarence gave him, the book Tom Sawyer that Clarence was reading. And that is the end of It's a Wonderful Life. And that is our second story tonight. Hope you all enjoyed that story. It's a really big story. It's really huge. You may have noticed I was kind of trying not to drop it, and then I had the little golden book as a to contrast that. Anyway, both really fun stories, and yeah. So thank you everyone for coming tonight. Let me look at chat, see what I have missed. Everyone saying hello, hello, and it looks like something's going on at Diana's work. It's either Florida hot or Arctic cold. Well, hopefully we can go somewhere in the middle with that. I hope whatever's going on gets resolved there. But anyway, that does it for tonight's stream. Thank you everyone for watching. Everyone watching live, thank you for watching. And if you're watching the replay, thanks for watching. I'll be back next Thursday with more stories, more Christmas stories, because 'tis the season for Christmas stories. I'm not sure which two stories I'll be reading next, so you'll have to come back to find out what I read. Also, I know I mentioned this at the beginning of the stream, but my Peanuts Countdown to Christmas series is going on every morning. A new video goes public around 9 o'clock a.m. Eastern Time. Fun stories with the Peanuts gang counting down to Christmas Day. So I invite you to check that out in your leisure. Next Tuesday, I'll be live again for my stream, The Big Gobble. Great time of chit-chatting and relaxing. And yeah, so until next time, take care, everyone. Thank you for watching, and have a very Merry Christmas. Bye-bye, everyone.